I'm the Reverend Dr. Larry Piers, minister of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware. And we're so happy to welcome you to our service focusing on the Unitarian gifts to Christmas. Whether you watch this recording on December 26th or any other time, may you enjoy the play reading and the singing and find here a special meaning of this season for you. The specific gifts that Unitarians have given to our celebrations of Christmas are not widely known, yet they persist and have become an integral part of our customs in our cultures, congregations, and homes. For example, did you know that a Unitarian minister, an avid abolitionist, and an advocate of free thought in religion is known as the father of the American Christmas tree? Well, his name was Reverend Charles Fallon, and he served the Unitarian Church in an octagonal church building that he actually designed in Lexington, Massachusetts, where I've been many times. This church bears his name until this day. He grew up in Germany, where decorating evergreen trees were part of his own heritage. One Christmas time in 1832, when Reverend Charles Fallon and his wife, Eliza, delighted a whole party of guests with something quite remarkable, a decorated tree indoors, what we call the Christmas tree. It was the talk of the town. One writer, Harriet Martineau, wrote of the event, "All eyes wide open, all lips parted, all steps arrested." This service of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, is our gift to you from some of the members of our congregation who will be doing a play reading, for our music director, Katherine Harris, who will be introducing the carols, from Catherine Williamson, our director of religious exploration, and from Jon Claney, our audio-visual team lead, who will extinguish the chalice, as well as perform a lot of magic that makes this video possible. May the customs, carols, and celebrations that we often take for granted fill us with wonder this particular season, so that they might say to us, about us as well, all eyes wide open, all lips parted, all steps arrested.
Good morning, Unitarian Universalists of Delaware and beyond. My name is Reverend Heather Bryan Starr, and I'm delighted to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year as we move and look towards 2022. We are so grateful that you are a part of our larger Unitarian Universalist community. I am standing here outside on this gorgeous December day in Lewis, Delaware, where I serve the UUs of Southern Delaware. And I hope that you get to visit us here in person or on live stream sometime. And we are so grateful to be joining you for your service this morning. Again, Happy New Year, and may we all look ahead to good things in 2022.
If you have a chalice at home, you are invited to light it now. Today's chalice lighting is adapted from words by Melanie Davis. Using a spark of hope, we kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Hello, I'm Kathy Harris, Music Director at First Unitarian Church in Wilmington. I'd like to take just a few moments to tell you a bit about the two Christmas carols which will be sung in the service this morning. The first is a much-loved carol entitled, "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear." The text for this carol was written by a Unitarian minister, the Reverend Edmund Hamilton Sears, in 1849. This carol is remarkable not only for its beauty, but for its focus, which is not on Bethlehem. This Christmas song never refers to the Nativity or Jesus, but speaks instead about events that were happening in Sears' own time, specifically issues of war and peace. The Mexican-American War had just ended, and the Civil War was already brewing in this country. But in spite of its timeliness in the mid-19th century, this carol remains, repeated all over the world, because it speaks to conflicts in our current time as well. Probably more than any other Christmas carol, it speaks to our world today. It inspires us to listen in solemn stillness so that we can hear and pay attention to a call for peace and goodwill to all. I'd like to read the third verse, which is often left out when this carol is sung. It's just a bit too gritty for some people at Christmas time, but we will sing this most powerful text. It goes like this. But with the woes of sin and strife, the world has suffered long. Beneath the angel strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong, alluding to slavery at that point. And man at war with man hears not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise, ye men of strife, and hear the angels sing.
He came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old. From angels bending near the earth to touch their arms of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to all, from heaven the news we bring. The world in solemn stillness lay, to hear the angels sing. Still through the golden skies they hung, with peaceful wings unfurled, and still their heavenly music flows o'er all the weary world. Above its sad and lonely plains they led one wandering wing, and ever o'er its babble sounds the blessed angels sing. But with the woes of war and strife, the world has suffered long. Beneath the angels' strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong, and we who find the wars here not the loss of which they bring. Oh, hush the noise of battle strife, and hear the angels sing. For lo, the days are hastening on, by prophet bars foretold, when with the ever-circling years comes round the age of gold, when peace shall over all the earth its ancient splendor spring, and the whole world send back the song which now
In 1843, shortly after visiting Unitarians here in the United States, and shortly after joining a Unitarian church in his country, England, Charles Dickens wrote the beloved story called A Christmas Carol.
It's about a man named Ebenezer Scrooge. Scrooge loved money above all other things. To him, it was the most important thing in life, more important than family, friends, and people who work for him, or people in general.
Let's see what Dickens said happened to Scrooge one fateful Christmas.
Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve day, old Ebenezer Scrooge sat busy in his money counting house.
Outside in the cold, bleak weather, the city clocks had only just struck 3 in the afternoon, but it was quite dark already. Carriages and sleighs went by, the horses' bells jingling in the winter air.
Scrooge kept a careful eye on his clerk, who sat at a dismal little desk copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller it looked like one coal.
Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened, and the cold became piercing. Some carolers passed by outdoors singing, "The first Noel, the angels
Oh, it's Christmas.
Christmas? Bah, humbug. Go away, you miserable little beggars.
Merry Christmas!
I live in a world of fools. Merry Christmas. If I had my way, everyone who said Merry Christmas would be cooked for his own Christmas dinner. Ha! Back to work.
At length the hour of closing arrived, and Bob Cratchit, the clerk, stood up and put on his scarf.
You'll want a day off tomorrow, I suppose, it being Christmas Day.
Oh, it's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. I pay a day's wages for no work.
But it's only once a year.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pockets every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be sure to be here all the earlier the next morning.
Oh, I promise. Merry Christmas, sir.
Merry Christmas. Bah, humbug. Humbug, I say.
Scrooge walks out, closes and locks the door.
Something amazing was about to happen to Ebenezer Scrooge. A star of truth was about to shine in his life, and he had to find the courage to follow it. Something you should know about this story. Charles Dickens, who wrote it, knew what it was like to be poor. When he was 12 years old, his family lost all they had and were sent to a jail for poor people. Charles was sent to work in a factory for 10 hours a day to help pay his family's debts.
Later, he worked as a clerk like Bob Cratchit. He learned how hard things were for poor families. All of his life, Charles Dickens wrote books about how hard things were for poor people. He used his gift of storytelling to help others. Now let's get back to the story.
Scrooge went home to his chambers, which had once belonged to his dead business partner, Jacob Marley. They were a gloomy set of rooms in an old and dreary building where nobody lived but him.
The yard around the building was so dark that Scrooge had to grope with his hands. As he found the doorknob and put key to lock, he saw not a knob, but the face of Jacob Marley.
Scrooge had not given one thought to his former business partner, Jacob Marley, since his death 7 years earlier. Startled, Scrooge looked upon the face of Jacob Marley and stared as it turned back again to just a knob.
Scrooge put his hand upon the key, turned it sturdily, walked in, and lit his candle.
Humbug.
Scrooge closes the door with a bang.
Scrooge walked through his rooms to see that all was all right. He found nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa, and a small fire in the grate.
Quite satisfied, he put on his dressing gown and his nightcap, locked his sleeping room door, and sat down before the fire.
Humbug.
As Scrooge sat there, he heard a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain in the cellar.
He heard the cellar door fly open with a booming sound, and then heard the noise coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door.
It's humbug still.
It was not a humbug, whatever that is. It was a ghost.
Without a pause, the ghost came through the heavy door and passed into the room before Scrooge's eyes. The ghost of Marley enters.
A chain clasped about the ghost's middle held ledgers, books where people keep track of money, and deeds, papers about who owns property, and cash boxes, keys, and padlocks made of steel.
Who are you?
In life, I was your business partner, Jacob Marley.
Humbug. I tell you, humbug.
Scrooge, hear me!
Dreadful ghost. Why do you trouble me?
I wear the chain I made in life. Each time I made money more important than people. Each time I made some poor family lose their home. Each time I sent a poor person to prison, I made another link in this chain. And now in death, I must drag it after me. It is a dreadful burden, Scrooge. Hear me, my time is nearly gone. I am here tonight to warn you so that you have a chance of escaping my fate. You will be haunted this very evening by 3 spirits. Expect the first when the bell tolls midnight. Expect the second when it strikes 2. Expect the third when it strikes 4 in the morning. For your own sake, remember what will pass.
Bah!
Scared and tired, Scrooge went straight to bed and fell into a fitful sleep.
Ebenezer went to sleep to dream, perhaps of another midnight clear, when angels sang onto the earth. Now, I said that Scrooge loved money more than friends, but maybe he had one friend anyway. Maybe this man Marley was his friend because he came back to tell Scrooge the truth.
Friends do that sometimes. Sometimes a good friend will tell us the truth about how we could be better people. Do you think Scrooge will listen to this friend or to the ghost that will come? Let's see.
Scrooge awoke when he heard the bell sounding the hour of midnight.
Light flashed in the room, and the curtains were drawn aside. Scrooge found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor. It wore a tunic of the purest white and a lustrous belt, and the dress trimmed with summer flowers. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." As the ghost spoke these words, she clasped Scrooge's hand, and they passed through the wall, and soon stood upon a country road with fields on either side.
Good heavens, I was a boy here.
Walking the road, he recognized every gate and post and tree. Soon they came to a school.
The school is not quite deserted. A solitary child neglected by his friends is left there still. Scrooge beheld himself as a child, thin, cold, alone at Christmas time in the old school, with no one to care for him.
I know that boy.
Scrooge sobbed as he remembered what a sad child he had been, always alone on Christmas Day.
The ghost grasped his hand again, then stopped at a warehouse door.
Oh, Fezziwigs! I had my first job here.
In they went, and at the sight of an old gentleman sitting behind a high desk, Scrooge cried out,
Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart! It's Fezziwig, alive again!
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer, Dick!
Scrooge's former self, now a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by a fellow apprentice.
Yo-ho, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Ebenezer. Christmas Eve, Dick.
Oh, the Christmas party. He threw such marvelous parties. Plenty of cake and punch and pie. It was glorious. Of course, it all cost him a fortune.
Scrooge could scarcely believe his eyes, seeing himself as he was then.
As a jolly Christmas party began, Scrooge caught sight of a young girl, Fezziwig's daughter, Belle. The young adult Scrooge crosses to her and takes her hand.
Oh, Belle, as lovely as ever. She always took my breath away. That was before I took the job with Marley and became infected with greed.
And then again, away Scrooge and the ghost went. Again, Scrooge saw himself, older now, a man in the prime of his life, with an eager, greedy, restless motion in his eyes.
He sat not alone, but with Belle, who had tears trailing down her cheeks. He had loved this girl once, and they were to be married.
Oh, Spirit, do not show me this day.
We cannot marry, Ebenezer. You do not love me as you did. I fear a golden idol replaces me, and gain engrosses you.
She rose and walked sadly away. Love of money had made him lose her. The young adult Ebenezer looks after her, then turns and walks away.
No, Belle, don't go.
She cannot hear you.
Oh, foolish young man, to have prized money over that woman. Ghost, remove me from this place.
I told you these were shadows of the things that have been. That they are what they are, do not blame me.
Remove me. I cannot bear it. Take me back. Haunt me no longer.
Scrooge found himself in his own bedroom and fell heavily back to sleep.
When the star of truth shone into Scrooge's life, he had the courage to follow and to see what treasures its light revealed. Some were painful, but valuable all the same. Can you imagine seeing yourself as you once were? What a gift the spirit of Christmas past gave Scrooge, helping him remember how he became the man he was.
It was a painful gift for Scrooge. Let's see how he was able to receive it and the gift of the next spirit.
Scrooge woke in the middle of a great snore, knowing the bell was about to strike 2. Trembling, he watched and waited.
He saw a blaze of ruddy light, which was more alarming than a dozen ghosts. He got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the adjoining room from whence the light seemed to come.
Ebenezer Scrooge, good fellow, come in, come in.
Scrooge enters. There, heaped upon the floor, to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, great joints of meat, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies.
I guess they weren't vegetarians, were they? But there were also plum puddings, barrels of red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, and seething bowls of punch.
Above it sat a jolly giant, glorious to see.
I am the ghost of Christmas present.
Spirit, conduct me where you will.
Gone was the fine food and punch. Gone was the room and the warm fire. Instead, Scrooge and the ghost of Christmas present stood on the threshold of Bob Cratchit's door.
Blessings on this house and all who dwell within.
They went through the door as if it were merely a mist. Inside, they found a merry bustle as the Cratchit family prepared for Christmas dinner.
Why, it's Bob Cratchit. This must be his house. This must be his family.
The Cratchit children set chairs for everyone. Bob took his son, Tiny Tim, beside him. Tiny Tim was small and thin and sickly. He could not walk very well and needed a crutch to get along.
And who is that little fellow?
That is Tiny Tim.
Why is he walking with a crutch?
I fear that Tiny Tim is not well. He has been sickly all his young life.
At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. Mrs. Cratchit brought in a small goose on a plat.
Hurrah!
A toast to the founder of the feast, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Founder of the feast, indeed. How can he expect you to support a fine family on such a small salary?
My dear, it is Christmas, and we are meant to be generous with all, even Mr. Scrooge.
To Mr. Scrooge, then. God bless him.
Yes, a Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
Merry Christmas. God bless us. God bless us, everyone.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved.
But no, that cannot be. Can nothing be done?
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
Things are looking sad as Scrooge's heart slowly opens. This is a gift of Christmas. Even when things are difficult, we believe in the messages it brings. Because of the gift of truth from the ghost of Christmas past, Scrooge has seen himself as a lonely child, transformed into a man more inspired by greed than love.
Because of the gift of the ghost of Christmas present, Scrooge has seen the hidden home life of his worker, Bob Cratchit. He has seen a sickly child who blesses everyone. This touches the old miser's heart.
It must have made Scrooge think. Here was a boy whose life was even worse than his, except this child had a loving family. What gift do you think the next spirit will bring? And how will Scrooge react? Let's find out.
Scrooge lifted his eyes and beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming toward him. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which concealed its form and left nothing visible save one outstretched hand.
I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
The ghost answered not, but pointed downward with its hand.
You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in time. Is that so, Spirit?
Although used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand.
Lead on, lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, Spirit.
Scrooge looked to find himself outside the door of Bob Cratchit's house once again.
Why do they weep, Spirit?
The spirit said nothing, but pointed to Bob Cratchit, coming up the street, head bowed down. Cratchit sighs, then squares his shoulders as he opens the door.
I'm sorry I'm late, my dear. I was at the churchyard visiting Tiny Tim's grave. I promised him I would do it often.
Oh, Bob, I miss him so much.
So do I, my dear. So do we all.
That's enough. Cruel Spirit. Is there no hope that Tiny Tim could live?
The spirit said nothing, just raised one ghastly arm and pointed. The next moment, the spirit and Scrooge stood in a graveyard. The spirit pointed to one of the graves.
What is this place? Is this where poor Tiny Tim is buried?
The ghost said nothing, but merely pointed at a headstone.
Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went. Following the finger, he read upon the stone of a neglected grave his own name.
Ebenezer Scrooge. No, Spirit. Oh, no, no.
The ghost of Christmas yet to be did not stir, did not move.
Hear me. I am not the man I was. Good Spirit, assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me, if I change my life.
The spirit did not move.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer, he saw an alteration in the ghost hood and dress.
It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost.
I will live in the past and the present and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. O Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees. Old Jacob, on my knees. Thank you for warning me. Thank you for giving me another chance.
Running to the window, he opened it, put out his head, and felt clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold.
Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious! Below in the street, the same caroler sang.
King Wenceslas went down on...
And a good king he was. What a fitting tale of charity and kindness. Hey there, boy, what's today?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day.
Saints be praised. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Fine fellow. Do you know if they've sold the prize turkey hanging at the store? You know the one. It's as big as you.
It's hanging there now.
Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scrooge. What's gotten into him? Must be a Christmas miracle.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last went out into the streets. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile.
He went to church and walked about, watched the people, patted children on the head, talked with beggars, and found that everything could yield him pleasure.
The day after Christmas, Scrooge was early at the office. He was waiting when Bob Cratchit entered, a little late.
Mr. Cratchit, what do you mean by coming in this late?
Well, I'm very sorry, sir. It won't happen again.
Bob Cratchit, I cannot stand this any longer. Therefore, I'm going to raise your salary.
Raise it, sir? Are you feeling quite all right?
Better than ever in my whole life. A Christmas that is merry, Bob. And may it be a merrier Christmas, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year.
You are serious, and a Merry Christmas to you too, sir.
Not only do I intend to raise your salary, Bob Cratchit, I intend to provide Tiny Tim with the finest medical care that can be found.
Tiny Tim? How do you know of my son, sir?
Oh, never you mind right now. I've quite a tale to tell, such as you would never believe. We will discuss all that this very afternoon, Bob, over a cup of Christmas punch. But for now, let's see what we can do for some of the poor people who rent apartments for me.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father.
He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew.
And it was always said of him, from that great night forward, that he knew how to keep Christmas well.
Yay.
Among the gifts that Unitarians have given to Christmas is this timeless tale we have just heard read, The Christmas Carol. It was shortly after he joined a Unitarian church in his 30s that Charles Dickens actually wrote this story, a story that captures what really enamored Dickens about Unitarianism. Without dogma or what he called doctrinal wranglings among the various religions, Dickens felt he could declare the essence of the Christian gospel of love and charity towards all humankind, and especially to those who are most marginalized or even unconsciously ignored because of our own Scrooge-like self-absorption. The tale conveys a good news, a gospel, so to speak, of its own, in a way that brings home a message that is unencumbered by doctrine, but yet is very true to the meaning of Christmas. As for many Unitarians of his time and those Unitarian Universalists of today, it is not just what noble ideals that we proclaim, it is how we embody those ideals in deliberate acts of love, in deliberate acts of compassion and care and justice making. That's what really matters. In fact, early Unitarians, even those with Christian convictions, did not want to put Jesus on a pedestal, since they felt that that would make the ethical life of Jesus inaccessible and unavailable to all of us. To worship Jesus was to set apart his humanity from our own, but to live as Jesus lived by the ethics of Jesus means that each of us is called to actually embody the divine life in our daily actions, to make so tangible the divine love and compassion in our everyday ways of being and acting in the world. That is what actually transforms us. That is what actually transforms those we encounter. The Christmas Carol, therefore, is really a story of conversion, a transformation of the character Scrooge, and indeed the possibility of the transformation of the human soul, our soul, in this very life. Through this story of the conversion of Scrooge, Dickens has been said to illustrate that his readers too can be converted from a harsh, complacent, selfish worldview to one of love, hope, and charity. And like Scrooge, can once again become part of the human community. When becoming a Unitarian, Charles Dickens declared, "I've carried into effect an old idea of mine and joined the Unitarians who would do something for human improvement if they could, and who prefer charity and toleration." May we honor the gift that Dickens has passed on to us by not merely giving lip service to our ideals, but by living up to these words. May on this day, in whatever way is available to us, however small or big our actions, may we make of our life a gift, and thus embody a light that can bring more healing and hope into this world. May you experience the blessings and the gifts of Christmas time on this day. And may the grace of Christmas time and its spirit of love and generous charity shine through from you into all the places of your life and all the places in the world that need more light.
Sublime of peace on earth to all good.
I'm Jon Claney, AV Tech Lead here at First Unitarian Church. I'm Jon Claney, AV Tech Lead here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. And in bringing this morning's service to a close, the service has shared some of the gifts that Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists have shared with Christmas, have contributed to Christmas. I find myself thinking about another kind of gift that it's almost a cliche to talk about the gift of presence. But I've thought a lot about it over the last couple of years as we've been going through our experience of reimagining and trying to reinvent church under these times of COVID. This morning's service was entirely pre-recorded. And I remember when we first started doing this in earnest back in March of almost 2 years ago, what it was like to create services where I worked with just a few people in the sanctuary. We didn't have a congregation. We had a loving and very devoted congregation that showed up every Sunday online. And I'm sure that they were thinking about what it meant to be present under those circumstances. I'm in an almost unique position with our services in that I work with a lot of the pre-recorded content, and so I might find myself listening to the same piece of music, so this morning we had a play, and I'll actually have headphones on and I'll listen if it's a piece of music that I'm mixing. And I'll experience that piece of music over and over again. And one of the things that it's been a joy to discover is how that kind of presence is a kind of loving devotion. One feels a kind of love growing for the people that you're listening to and helping express themselves. And in those moments, I often will feel very lucky to be working with so many talented people, wonderful singers, wonderful speakers. But I've been around other congregations enough to realize that while we appreciate the talents among us, a lot of that is that love that we feel for the people that we know, have come to know. And in every congregation, we love the people that are helping us on this journey as we build our communities. So I hope that we will hold the many members of our communities in our hearts as I say these words and extinguish our chalice for the last time in this year 2021. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light that illuminates the faces of loved ones and the spaces that hold meaning for us, the light that glows when we connect and radiates in the present.